Okay, hi. My name is Lucy Vento. I'm a clinical psychologist and I work for the Education Wellbeing Service in Sutton, which is part of the wider CAMHS provision. So we're based in schools and also in Cashel College. So I have received some questions that came from your youth board. We're always keen to learn what's working with young people, both individually and on a wider level. So in terms of what works for that person that might be in the room with you, but also more patterns of what works for people with particular difficulties or concerns. So one of the ways that we find out more about that and to learn from that is that we use questionnaires. So all CAMHS interventions use questionnaires at the beginning when we first meet with a young person to help us assess or understand better the difficulties that that individual young person is experiencing. And we also hear about what each young person is hoping for from the support that they're going to receive. So we collaboratively set goals that we work towards during the intervention. The questionnaires that we use ask lots of questions about common thoughts, feelings and behaviours that young people experience in different situations. And we can compare the scores that they have with other children and young people, their age, to identify if there's difficult areas where they're finding things a bit more difficult compared to what might be typical of that age group. We then often monitor how the intervention is going, so how that support that you're receiving from CAMHS is going, by doing a very brief questionnaire quite regularly during an intervention. And then at the end of that time, end of that intervention that you've had the support with CAMHS, we then have do another questionnaire, a longer one at the end, to see a bit more overall how things have gone and the impact of that work. So I mentioned that we also set goals collaboratively, and this helps to ensure that the sessions that you're having with the CAMHS worker work on what you're hoping for as a young person. So we check on those quite regularly during the sessions, just to make sure that we're keeping on track with what that young person is hoping to gain. One of the reasons we do these questionnaires and goals is because actually research has found that it helps young people to reach what they're hoping for more quickly and effectively. We also send the questionnaire scores anonymously to NHS England, where they analyse that so that people from all over the country are doing this, so that we can build a better picture of what helps most with different people with different difficulties. Another thing that we do is we ask at the end of each intervention with CAMHS for another questionnaire, which is feedback in terms of what went well, what you felt was good, and what things could be improved. So we're always trying to improve what we're offering to children and young people. You might know that we do workshops as well in schools. And so in terms of that kind of intervention, we're always asking for feedback from students to hear about whether they found that workshop helpful, something they might have learned, and ideas they might have to improve the workshop, and try and take those into account in any future workshops on that kind of topic. We are realising it's quite hard to measure the effectiveness of those kind of workshops, but we are currently doing some bigger projects to try and do that, particularly on some of the bigger or most frequently used workshops we do. I thought it might be helpful to show you a graph in terms of measuring effectiveness and using those questionnaires and the goals. I'm going to try and share my screen so that I can show you a picture of a graph. Here is so outcome measures from last year's report that we did, which we used the questionnaire. So this graph where there's a big, mostly green circle, that's where we looked at the goals. So the goals that those young people set at the beginning of the intervention. You can see here 91% of children and young people who did the guided self-help intervention with the Education Wellbeing Service, they improved, their goals went up. Some of them, it doesn't work for everybody, as you can see. There's a few that stayed the same or went down. And that's where actually we might think with that young person about what a different kind of support that might be more helpful. But 91% is pretty good. And the graph on the right with the two blue the bar graph, that's how much the goals improve. So on average, when they first met with the person in our team to do the guided self-help intervention, they rated the goals on about hour 3, so quite out of 10. And then by the end of the intervention, it had gone up to, on average, 7.3. So generally, people make quite a good progress towards their goals during the intervention. And then the questionnaire that I referred to with lots of questions about the people's thoughts and feelings about things is called the Revised Childhood Anxiety and Depression Scale. And as you can see, there's just what numbers there rather than a graph. So 88% of young people's scores improved. And most of them went from clinical concern, which means that actually they're higher than than many other young people their age, or the average young person of their age, to the healthy range. So they moved, so they actually did, their well-being was improved by the end of the intervention, and 88% of young people improved. And again, it's not everybody it works for, but actually that's the far majority of people did improve on those scales.